Well, Microsoft was the first software company where we wrote software for personal computers, and we believed that we could hire the best engineers. There was an unbelievable amount of software to be written, and we could do it well, and we could do it on a global basis. And the original customer base was the hardware manufacturers, and we sold to literally hundreds and hundreds, over 100 companies in Japan, over 100 companies doing word processors and industrial control type things. We knew in the long run we wanted to sell software directly to users, but we actually didn't get around that until 1980 when we had our first sort of games and productivity software that people would go to a computer store and actually buy the software package.
When A Time to Kill was published, it was an unknown author, unknown book, unknown publisher. There was no money for promotion, and so I tried to sell the book myself. And I went to a lot of bookstores in the Memphis, Mid-South area. A lot of them had no time. They didn't want a new author, and especially one with a publisher they'd never heard of. But there were a handful who opened their doors and said, sure, come on in, we'll try to sell some books, and we'll have a party, and we'll invite all of our customers.
My job was to live through Friday afternoon, get through the week and eat something. And then along come these differential experiences that you don't look for, you don't plan for, but boy, you better not miss them. The things that make you bigger than you are, the things that give you a vision, the things that give you a challenge.
I saw that what I could succeed in, I never considered myself very bright, and I always thought of myself as mathematically mediocre. So I figured that probably, like your college runner who just has difficulty breaking a 10-second 100 breaking 11 seconds, shall we say, 100-meter, realizes that their best shot is to rely less on strength and speed and more on self-discipline, planning, and long, hard work. Yes, that's the way I do science.
My father had a wonderful library, and we always bought books galore, and I devoured all the books of explorers that went to various places in the world, and I admired what Humboldt had done, and Bates, and Darwin, and the Swedish explorers, Sven Hedin and others, and I was dreaming all the time about someday being an explorer, going to tropics, going to the jungles, seeing new things, discovering strange animals and so forth. But of course it was a dream world.
I was always extremely curious about why people did the things they do, and I was always very interested in what motivates people and telling stories and building things. I've always been very, very into building things, whether they're chess sets or houses or cars or whatever. I like to put things together. And so when I was young, from at least my teenage years, they were completely devoted to cars, and that was the most important thing in my life from about ages of 14 to 20.
A lot of people ask me, what's the best advice to someone who wants to be a director? And the answer I give is very simple. Be a director. Pick up a camera, shoot something, no matter how small, no matter how cheesy, no matter whether your friends and your sister star in it, put your name on it as director. Now you're a director. Everything after that, you're just negotiating your budget and your fee. So it's a state of mind is really the point. Once you commit yourself to do it.
If I do something caring for a friend, I have no doubt in my mind they would do it for me. And the people I've tended to bind to in life, I've made a lot of mistakes because I bind to some people who use you, and some people take advantage of you. But I was raised in that culture in Brooklyn, which is part Jewish, I guess, and part the culture of Brooklyn, which was giving was better than receiving, much better to give than receive, was joyful to give. And a sense that I know that if I give to Herbie, if he's down, he would give to me when I was down.
I became involved in the experimental procedures, worked with the animals, and for the first time saw embryos and assessed them. And these are, they're very small, 1/10 of a millimetre across, but they're extremely beautiful little things which grow into all of the different things. And that's where the fascination in developmental biology and embryology came from.
So I was in camp, and on this particular day, I remember, can never forget, holding out a banana in my hand to David. And he came up and he was nervous, and he hesitated, but then he took the banana. And it was just like, I imagine how the early explorers felt when they were holding out beads and things to the natives and they were accepted for the first time. So after that, if I met a group of chimps out in the forest and they were ready to run, as usual, if David was there, then they would sit. Well, she can't be so scary after all. So that was the point at which some of them became belligerent. And those were the ones who were more fearful, because you get over your fear by being aggressive.
I have wanted to be a paleontologist since I was 5 or 6 years old. I had a very imperfect conception of what it was when I was 5. I thought it meant going out west and collecting dinosaur bones all your life. But sometimes I look back and say, my goodness, I actually did it. And I've been successful enough at it, and I've enjoyed it as much as I thought I would, and it's as fine a field as I'd ever hoped. So it's very satisfactory.
We lived in those mountains that lie really between the coastal plain heading on out to the Pacific and the desert behind in the rain shadow of the mountains. So that offered an opportunity for me as a child to work in all kinds of different environments, desert and mountains, and it wasn't work in the sense my work has become this childhood, an expansion of my childhood in a sense, and that's really where it started. I started doing archaeology very, very early when I was a teenager in those mountains.
Our system for educating kids over the last 20 years has declined dangerously. Our kids are not learning, and they're certainly not learning math and science. The net result is the number of kids who are going into math and science is declining. If not for foreigners, we'd be in bad shape in this country, as in the training of engineers, mathematicians, scientists, technicians.
When I was very small, maybe 5 or 6, I was taken in to Daddy's work to see a computer, and I remember it as being a big cabinet with a clock on it and with a desk with a paper tape reader, one box which was a paper tape reader and one box which was a paper tape punch. So I came home and put a clock on my cupboard and put a desk in front of it, and I put one cardboard box which you push the paper tape into and one cardboard box that you pull the paper tape out of, and so that was that was the first computer.
When I was very young, I hadn't been exposed to computers, so I was mostly just reading, doing math, learning about science, and I wasn't sure what my career would be. I knew I loved learning about things. I was an avid reader, but it was when I was 12 years old that I first got to use a computer, actually a very limited machine by today's standards. But that definitely fascinated me when I was first exposed.